OsteoSignal Episode 4. This is OsteoSignal with Neal D. O'Neal, a podcast exploring how your body's natural design connects with osteopathic science, translating complex signals into practical insights so you can truly thrive.
Hello to everybody. Welcome back to the Neal O'Neal Show. We're here with Neal O'Neal and Autumn Mayberry. I'm Brett Mayberry, and today we're going to be talking about
Heterochronic Parabiosis.
Okay, and let's break that down.
So hetero means same, chronic, same time. So at the same time, and then you had parabiosis. Para means two, and biosis means life. What it refers to, and of course, like so many of these terms that come up in research, it's a little bit of a, odd term. What it really means is that there was a research done where medical scientists are trying to figure out how can we help people not have dementia, not have Alzheimer's, et cetera, not have loss of brain function as we age. In that pursuit, they took a young mouse and an old mouse, and they actually attached their arteries and their veins together so that they shared arterial venous flow, thus the heterochronic parabiosis. Two lives, one at the same time, sharing a body, in fact. So they did this, and what they found was, and so this research was done in about 2005, and they found that when they connected the old mouse and the young mouse, that the old mouse actually improved in health, that its brain health, and function, and that its organ function and health improved. So of course, this is an amazing result. Everybody says, "Wow, that's great," and immediately. People tried to make assumptions. And of course, doctors made assumptions immediately, which you would think that they wouldn't do that. But MDs immediately said, "Oh, we think it's the..."
Was it the platelets?
Yeah, we believe that's the platelets. So they immediately started using PRP, platelet-rich plasma.
Sure.
Now, that has worked well for some things, like small tears and rotator cuffs and such, but it's not really a healing paradigm. From the standpoint of that's not going to do anything for your brain, platelet-rich plasma. So, of course, if you come across something and you have some idea, like we think this is what caused it, you have to test that theory out. So, of course, once this research came out, everybody was interested in it, and several scientific research teams, medical scientific research teams, followed up on this. And no one could figure out what it was that was the difference in changing the old mouse. What was it in the young mouse that made the old mouse rejuvenate? Okay. So, and they tried all sorts of things, including all sorts of blood products. They said, well, what if we do red blood cells? What if we do white blood cells? What if we do platelets? What if we do plasma? What if we do this? What if we do that? And they weren't finding any answers. And so fast forward to about 2023, the same group that had done the original research was doing a all hands on deck kind of thing where they said, okay, look, we're going to take tons of mice. And what occurred in the first research project is we took half the blood volume of both mice and exchanged it, really, right? So you figure that at any one time, or at some point in time, the old mouse received about half the blood supply from the young mouse. So they decided, okay, we have to try and, if we're going to find the answer, we really need to hone in here and figure out, let's take out half the blood volume of each of these mice and of these old mice and replace it with something from young mice, right? So they tried, and they had in this 2023 research, they had 20 different things they were checking, but they needed a control group. And they said, well, look, if we take old mice and just take out half their blood volume, they're going to die. Okay? So they said, well, we have to replace it with something. So we don't want to replace it with anything from a young mouse or anything that might be considered something that could be healing. So what we'll do is, and you can basically either just hang a bag of fluid for the old mouse, but if you do fluid to replace the fluid volume that was lost with the blood volume that was lost, there are several factors you have to take into account. First, there's hypovolemic shock, right? Just the volume of blood that was removed. You need that much more fluid in there, or that much more water, so like say saline solution. However, there's also electrolytes that that need to be there. So a saline solution is great, but is that enough electrolytes? And then finally, also, what about proteins? So when they put this fluid, this non-healing regular fluid back in the old mice, they said, well, we'll just use albumin that we've collected from other mice. And albumin, that's a common thing to happen, that when somebody has a large blood volume loss, you'll receive a bag of fluid, but if your protein levels are too low, they'll give you albumin. Okay, so they did that for these old mice, and they went through their whole thing, had all these mice live for X number of weeks, and then, of course, they destroyed them, looked at their brains, looked at their organs, and they went through their groups, and lo and behold, they had found a winner. They had found an even better result than they had originally, right?
Wow.
And they said, wow, this is amazing, except there's a problem. It's not any of the groups that we gave stuff from young mice. It was the one group that we didn't give anything other than replace their blood volume with saline solution, make sure there was enough electrolytes, and make sure there was enough protein.
So was it the control group?
It was a control group.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the control group actually not only did fantastic, they had done better than the original set of old mice, which of course shocked everyone. And of course, then when they sat back and thought, they went, oh, yeah, certainly logically, that was one of the possibilities, that it was simply that we changed over blood volume. We took what the blood volume was in the old mouse and diluted it. My analogy for this is like having a pool. So anybody that has had a pool or swam in a pool, let's say you have a pool and you swim in it, and you and the kids are swimming in it all summer, and you're putting chemicals in there, but the chemicals are keeping it blue and it looks pretty clean. But there is organic material building up in that pool. Okay, so now you winterize the pool and you cover it over and you leave it alone and you forget about it for 6 months, and then you come back in the spring, late spring, when it's nice and warm, and you say, hey, the kids and I, we all want to get back in the pool. So you pull back the cover only to find a black
Ew.
pool.
Ew.
Now, yeah, exactly. Ew. So what do you do with that pool? Do you start putting chemicals in it, and then do you pull some of the black water out, and you ozonate it, and you red light laser it, and you do all this other stuff, and then put it back in the pool? And I bring that up because that's exactly what there's a lot of naturopaths or various people who say, hey, come to our clinic and we're going to take out your blood volume and we'll put ozone in it. We'll irradiate it. We'll put all this great nutrients in it, and then we'll put it back in your body.
Mhm.
Is that how you would do your pool? No.
No.
What you would do is you would just take as much water out of the pool as you possibly could, and then ideally all of it, but there's still going to be some black goo or black stuff, right? But you might just dilute that down, saying, well, never mind, I've got a lot of powerful chemicals. I'll just dilute as best I can and then break it down, right? And then you'd have your pool up and running and you'd have blue water again. Well, the analogy here is, okay, these old mice had old blood volume, and there's a lot of stuff in there.
I was going to say that they, getting old is like being winterized.
It's like being
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then all that black goo starts to build because nothing's happening. And then whatever had been in the system slowly grows and aggregates. And so let's talk about some of the things that might be in people's bloodstreams, right? Well, you have a history, your immune history is in your bloodstream. You have broken down antigens, and you're constantly getting new antigens. Let's say you had bacteria that got in and got defeated by your immune system. You didn't even get sick, or you did get sick, or you had viruses that attacked cells, and the cells got destroyed by your immune system so that they couldn't propagate more viruses. So you have all this broken down stuff. Well, how do we control that? Well, humans, we have these things called cytokines. Cytokines is killers. So, but they're also, it's communication, right?
Right.
So cytokines are for communication from cell to cell. Oftentimes can end in cell death, apoptosis. You tell a cell, it's your turn to die. Here's your cytokine. Here's your death warrant. We said, kill yourself.
Mhm.
And that's why, that's one of the ways that we keep ourselves from getting cancer. However, all these cells are breaking down. So you have this multitude of things. In other words, the pool is getting darker and darker, and pretty soon it's getting black. And as you get older, it gets harder and harder for your kidneys and your liver and your spleen and the other organs that are supposed to take care of this stuff to clean that out, because they too have been assaulted by just the sheer vast amount coming at them. Right? So that really becomes a problem. And how I can say that, or why I will say that, I will relate a little bit of information that a lot of people know. If you have older parents or you've had older relatives that have gone into, say, a nursing home or a care home, and they're doing pretty well, but they're being taken care of, but all of a sudden one day, the doctor calls and said, well, we're going to put your this person on medication because they have Alzheimer's. And you go, what are you talking about? I just talked to my uncle or mom or dad last week. They were perfectly fine. There's no chance they have Alzheimer's. No, they've got Alzheimer's. So, of course, you would go down to the care home or whatever and say, hey, okay, let me talk to mom and dad. And sure enough, they seem quite like they've lost their marbles. And say, well, wait a second. That seems really odd because just last week they were fine.
Yeah.
And now somebody else in the care home might say, oh, anytime you see that in an older person, we know that's a UTI, a urinary tract infection.
Right.
Now, why would that have that effect? Well, the kidneys generally clean your blood and keep your electrolyte balance and your protein balance, right? That's what they do, and your blood pressure appropriate. However, if as you get older, they don't do as good of a job anymore. And let's say that you have a huge challenge on the kidneys, otherwise known as a urinary tract infection, which that's the top of the urinary tract, right? So now all of a sudden they're not able to do their job as well. They're still able to do it to some degree, but you can see how close to the edge of function that they are because they kick over into what we would consider Alzheimer's or dementia, right? And you go, oh, gosh, they're kicking over that. So, let's go back to our old mice. Their systems are becoming senescent, right? And there are certain sites in organs that are senescent sensitive sites where you start to age at that point, and then the organ ages from that point outward. And then pretty soon you have old organs that can't keep up with it. Plus the sheer tide of stuff coming on against them, they just can't handle it and it overwhelms them. And you begin aging. Your kidney ages and then the rest of your body ages. And eventually your brain ages from that. So what do we do about that? Right? So of course, what I've taken from this is, and obviously the research team said, well, we hadn't realized there was this other option about what we should do. What we suggest is that you do a neutral plasma exchange. Okay? And again, fun term that they came up with, but what they mean is that they think that you should remove a certain amount of plasma, right? Because we're trying to get rid of, and now think about all the things that are in plasma. Plasma is if you take out the white blood cells, if you take out the red blood cells, then what you have left is this
That straw-colored fluid that's left over.
Fluid. Right. And there's platelets in there, but there's cytokines, there's immune complexes, there's antigens, there's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I remember in class you said cell lines from, for females from our kids, each of our kids that we've had and things like that too that are going to.
There are other things floating around. Now, when you do the plasmapheresis, anything that's big enough will get pushed back into your system, like a red blood cell or maybe white blood cell. But you're going to lose a lot of stuff. And so, of course, how clean is a plasmapheresis? I'm not an expert on that, but I know that they're trying to keep it as clean as possible because when we do this for people with kidney disease, we need to keep that protein level up. Otherwise, they'll die, right? So what they said, okay, neutral plasma exchange, take out a certain amount of plasma and then just replace that plasma with clean plasma. Or, again, like saline solution, albumin, if you need it. Of course, you're going to get that from some other human. That might not be your best bet. But, maybe if you just do it at a slower level. So that was their suggestion. And now there's other ways you can obviously think around this. You could say, well, you can also go donate plasma. You can actually get paid money to donate plasma. If you have certain kinds of blood types, A, B, and O, I believe it is, that even the blood banks want that and will take your plasma out for you. But if you're not that, they're going to be like, well, thanks, but we don't really need that today. They really just want it from those couples. So if you happen to be A or just B or, then they're not going to be overly happy with that and they're not going to want to do it for you. But there's plenty of pharmaceutical companies who need plasma to do their research, and so they're willing to pay you for it. So you could have that done. There are like naturopaths, and there are Rejuvenate is a chain that goes around. They will do certain things for you, including this plasma replacement. Now, in the past, this has been going on for years though. Before this research came out, people had been doing this, but generally it cost about $20,000 to $25,000. Currently, I can find places that will do it for $5,000. However, they would really rather add several other things to the process for $5,000 each. So by the time you're getting out of there, it's $15,000 to $20,000 again. Well, that's outside the reach of most people.
Sure.
Right.
Not practical.
And yeah, that's impractical. Now, that doesn't mean that in the near future, or if people don't start demanding it, that it's not going to cost $5,000. It's quite ridiculous. You can buy a plasmapheresis machine, a used one, online on eBay for a couple $1,000.
I love that you know that.
Just saying, I might have looked. So you can see, but you still need a doctor and or nurse available, or a phlebotomist. Sure. I mean, there's still professionals involved. It still takes money. There's still safety factors that you want to look at, but it can be provided for a whole lot less than that, particularly if there's more volume. If more people understand this and know about this, and that this is a pathway to restoring health, this is truly health care, as opposed to just covering up problems or saying, no, let us put new stuff in your black, pool water.
It's interesting because I've had patients that have started to do this, a few of them, and they've had some really great results. Their cognition's better, their affect is better, all kinds of things, overall health and things. But I've had some patients that have sent me videos of, people on YouTube that are claiming, oh, we're gonna do PRP today, or we're gonna take out, 2 liters of your blood, and we're gonna run it through this machine, ozone it, and no, not PRP, it's ozone. Sorry, ozone. They'll run it through there, and then we're gonna put it back, and then sometime later we'll come back and we'll do 2 more, and so after 3 times we've gotten all your blood clean. And I'm going, right. But if you mix it with how are you getting?
If you're
how
taking
can you
out
say
black pool water, and you ozonate it, I don't care how well you ozonate it, the gunk is still in there, and
it's mixing with everything else, and so in 3 times you're supposed to have all your blood clean. Yeah. And I think got to stop and think, that this is not how it's going to work,
Right. So there's some problems there.
Yeah.
And sure. I had a question about, so they discovered this result from their study with the control group of those mice, but did they, in your research, did they ever figure out what replacing the plasma does? Like, what does it force your body to do? How does your body compensate? What does your body do with the, now that it has half, or I guess with the mice, what did the mice's body do with half the volume of its blood,
removed
and then, yeah. So does that make sense? That,
totally.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, they didn't do a follow-up, because I think that's kind of within the medical knowledge, is that, well, if you can restore the health of those organs, they'll regenerate and start doing their job better. Like Autumn was saying, like she's had patients who've made improvements, but they also understood that, it's going to start to, you're going to have a chance to clean more of that stuff out of the system. However, it's only going to be so much.
So it just gives your body system a chance to, it doesn't have to worry about all of the junk that maybe, I don't know, preventing it from functioning at 100% or, at a higher level.
So let's say you've lost 50% function. Let's say you've lost 50% function. You're older like me. So you lost that function in your organ. And then we do this neutral plasma exchange. And if you go back to only having lost 40% of function, right? That's what they're looking at, saying, hey, we might be able to take you back some percentage point. Now, they didn't measure that. They just basically said, we know that it takes them backwards. We saw regeneration, and the self-healing properties of the human body, or the mouse body in this case, took back over and regenerated organs, brain.
And the theory is that because that junk was eliminated or removed to a certain extent, and it allowed the body to rejuvenate.
Exactly.
Okay.
Restored them to a more youthful time.
Those toxins and those yucky things that we don't want in our plasma, they accumulate at those senescence sensitive spots, right?
Exactly.
And there's also cells there and things there that would, without that clogging in there, would regenerate and turn over those cells, right? And help that be better.
Exactly. Liver cells, pancreas cells, brain cells, bone marrow cells.
Yeah.
So
natural healing would take place without the gunk in there.
Yeah. And there's another aspect of, we talk about cytokines, and that creates a certain amount of noise in the communication line, because hormones are a communication system. You think of them somewhat like liquid nerves. Well, if you have a bunch of cytokines and antigens and, positively charged and negatively charged proteins and this, that, the other floating around in your blood plasma, that's going to interfere with the messages that you're trying to get. So do you need testosterone or estrogen, or is it just that you have bad signaling?
Right. Yeah. And we talked about that last episode.
Yeah. The last episode we discussed.
Yeah.
That, right? So you can see that, maybe that's something that'll restore that. So we would want to do this neutral plasma exchange, but I'm a manual physical therapist. And of course, thinking about this and trying to integrate the osteopathic method, the osteopathic thinking that we learned from our mentor, Lauren Rex, DO, So we learned to think around the problem and say, well, what more can we do to make this process work better? So as manual therapists, we work with people all the time to help take them backwards in time and restore function by restoring deep lymphatic drainage, not just the superficial stuff that most people think about with lymphedema, but the deep lymphatic drainage, the drainage in organs, neural lymphatic, and endocrine function. Can you get the endocrine system functioning better? Can you restore and remove inflammation? That's another barrier. Can we make the kidneys work better by stimulating the sympathetics and the parasympathetic?
And you mentioned about expressing the liver and the spleen also.
Right. So think about this. So we have this gunk sitting around, and you do have organs: liver, spleen, pancreas, gallbladder, etc., and even fat stores, visceral fat that have absorbed some of these cytokines and other. We could call it toxins, or we could just call it waste products, things that are no longer useful to the body. They're really just waste products, and that need to be gotten rid of, but the body couldn't do it. But those are also going to be stored in all those organs. So what if you had a manual therapist who understood this, knew how to express the liver, so that, let's say that you had done a neutral plasma exchange, maybe once, maybe twice, you've already gotten a lot of stuff out of the circulation that you have, but some of that stuff is going to be in the nooks and crannies of the body.
Sure.
So you need somebody to go and restore function and the ability to move to the liver, what we call the mobility and the motility of the organ, of the spleen, right? Because those organs are going to take up those contaminants, if you will. Okay, so but what about the bones? What about the inside of the bones? Yes, they're going to have that too, because those are centers where your bones are going to age. Your bones are producing bone marrow, white blood cells, red blood cells. You need this constant turnover of cells, and your production sites have been taken offline by this level of contamination. So if I could go in and let's say that this is maybe the third time you're doing your neutral plasma exchange, but I go in and express your liver, your make sure your kidneys have good high function and are able to get the edema or any fluid out from around them. They have proper drainage. There's going to be a lot of gunk that's been in the nooks and crannies of the body that will then get put into the circulation. So instead of just skimming off the clean water that's kind of now taken, as you put cleaner stuff back in the system, that cleaner system, that cleaner water is going to be, or that cleaner fluid is going to be in the circulation. That'll be easy to take right back out. The stuff we want is that blacker, darker, more contaminated stuff. So you have to stir up the bottom of the pool, right? You have to make the legs work. You have to make you have to make the diaphragm function. You have to open up the function of the cranium, because you actually weep cerebrospinal fluid out of your cranium. You actually have venous drainage out of your cranium. You have what we call the lymphatics. So you have lymphatic drainage out of your skull, but that gets backed up as well. There are other studies that have shown the lymphatics, when they get overwhelmed, stop working. So those are the sorts of things you'd want to go back in, prime those mechanisms, prime those pumps, and then as those contaminants are now placed into the bloodstream for a short period of time, so you'd obviously want to do this right before you go in for the neutral plasma exchange again, then do that neutral plasma exchange, and you'll get more gunk, and you'll have gotten it out of the nooks and crannies. So then we can advance, we can make that restoration to health and rejuvenation even better.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to ask, how much of that process involves directly, I don't want to say manipulating, but addressing the organ itself, and how much is involved with addressing the autonomic nervous system? Does that question make sense?
Yes, it does. So you have the organ itself, and in most organs, a lot of organs have a capsule around them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The liver has a capsule, the kidneys have a capsule, and so, or like for example, say the pancreas, it's in the peritoneum in the abdomen, and the abdomen is a container of sorts. That fluid has to not only get into the lymphatics, but it also has to maybe drain through the diaphragm. So you have to directly treat that. But then the autonomics. What do sympathetics do? They control blood flow, and at some point they control blood flow into an organ. So if you're not getting proper blood flow into the organ, then you're not going to get proper function of that organ, and you're also not going to be able to clean out that organ. But before you can do that, you have to make sure that it has proper lymphatic drainage, proper venous restoration. You have to restore venous return. And then do you have parasympathetic? That also feeds into, do you have parasympathetic innervation or proper stimulation of those organs?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the
So
autonomics.
it's both. So you do both, but you would first directly address the organ itself, the
Yes.
organ system, and then the nervous system.
Yeah. So let me speak to that just a little bit
Sure.
because so the vagus nerve comes out of the cranium, and you actually have a couple of other parasympathetic nerves coming out of your cranium: oculomotor, facial, vagus, glossopharyngeal, and then that controls really this upper portion of your body. And then of course vagus goes through the chest cavity, the abdominal cavity gets 3/4 of your digestion, or well 2/3. So vagus, and then S2, 3, and 4, that's all your parasympathetic. Then your sympathetics come from your hypothalamus, come down your spinal cord, and then feed out into ganglia in front of L1 through, or T1 through L2. So you have to stimulate all these areas. So there's this overall, then also the sympathoadrenal part of that system, right? The sympathetic nerves themselves may release norepinephrine to cause a sympathetic response. Okay. But to get a systemic response, the system will kick in the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands have to be, let's say, worked on in order to get that proper functioning, that proper autonomic balancing of not too much stimulation in the sympathetic realm and not too much parasympathetic. Enough parasympathetic, enough sympathetic to be healthy.
Yeah, and this is what makes the osteopathic method, in my opinion, so vital. It's because it looks at the whole body system instead of just, just poking at the liver, trying to, squeeze it or whatever to get proper function. You just talked about all kinds of systems that go from your top to your lumbar spine, right?
Right, all the way down to your
Yeah.
sacrum. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
And there's a specificity to it also, right? Like if, I'm a massage therapist, I'm osteopathic model trained, right? With from Bear and stuff. But yet, a lot of massage therapists just push fluid through the body, right? And it's just general like motion thing. And once they stop doing that, it kind of slows down and goes back to the way it was. Where with how we're trained, we're manipulating like the ganglia. Or working with the ganglia, not manipulating like popping or anything like that, like a HVLA, but we're applying treatment specifically to these certain things to create fluctuations in the hormones, or to restart or create electricity, bioelectrical flow and drive. Yeah, so that helps. It's not just mechanically shoving just fluid willy nilly or just general fluid. It's to be able to integrate and like coordinate these individual systems, but also to help them coordinate better.
yeah, and I bring that up just for people who are watching or listening to get an idea of what osteopathically trained manual therapists do and how they approach something like this, right?
Right.
It's not just in other episodes we talked about, it's not just pumping your body full of supplements or doing some cutting edge procedure to help your body. You can use that for sure, you can use that, but you also need the osteopathic model to to integrate it and to give your body the best opportunity to restore function.
Right. And I think that's why we call it health care. We're returning the body to its healthy state, its ability to regulate itself and to heal itself.
Right. And you can't do that just with external, support or supplementation. Like we talked about with the peptides, or in this case with plasma exchange. That's great external stuff that you could definitely leverage in your body, but you need the osteopathic internal, treatment as well to maximize it. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do. We're optimizing, maximizing, trying to take this even further because, hey, if a 50% improvement's really good, why don't we make it great and make it a 75%? But you're not going to get those numbers unless you put out a lot of money and time constantly doing this stuff. And even then, you may not get the return of function.
Sure.
And that's why, like you had asked about, what about the autonomic nervous system? What about this? Right, that's the self-regulatory systems. You can do these external things, but that doesn't bring these self-regulatory things back online, the autonomic nervous system, the drainage. And those are going to continue to be a barrier to these external, right? In those cases, you can kind of think of the human body as a black box. They're throwing things in from the outside, and then there's a couple of measures they can do, like a blood test, this, that, the other. But those are end evaluations where there's so many things going into that you can't quite know who caused that. But that's where we come in. We go through the body from your feet to your head and look at all the things and how they interact, right? And understanding lymphatics, nerves, arteriovenous, hormonal signaling, endocrine function, what we call the neurohormonal axis, the hypothalamus pituitary gonadal adrenal axis, right? You have to understand these, the gut microbiome, understanding that actually there's different gut populations and different microbiome populations in different parts of your gut. So there's going to be different signaling. There has to be different signaling in every area where there's a different microbiome. That's important to know and to understand.
Yeah. That was something, that we discussed today that really helped me because I didn't quite have it set up that way in my head. And earlier today, we had a young man come in, that had viral meningitis, been in South America, and he was plugged up. He was, he's having a hard time breathing. He couldn't do it. So kind of all these systems were kind of slowed down or stopping, and it was really fascinating. While Neal worked on him, he had to pump the spleen and get that to start to turn over. And the kid turned green. I mean, really green. And we were kind of like, whoa, but Neal was able to help him get through that part and make sure that the other systems could accommodate the overflow and then the sloughing off and then help those kind of restart and then coordinate their system again. And he was able to care for him the whole time that he did that. And by the time he was done, you're like, oh, he's getting color back. And then he went and sat for a little bit and recovered and he was doing much better. But even the biomechanics got better. You could see the electrical flow and he wasn't, just his affect was better. His mood was better. Not so depressed. So you could tell there was electrical changes and stuff with the neurons and all that kind of stuff too. But, Neal had to take a swampy system, right? And find the entry point and then not just be like, well, I'm going to just squeeze this out and, come what may. He had to help him move past because if we'd have left it in there, you would have done harm, right? And so I think that's neat that to be able to see. I mean, your mind fascinates me anyway, and I want to be like you when I grow up, right? But that was just a neat thing to be able to be like, well, we have to do this to get him better, but you can't just do one thing and then be like, well, I started the system. It needs a little bit of care and guidance and understanding of when things need to come in and why you would do a certain thing, and then be able to cater that to the person at that time, because it's not body. You're never going to do that same treatment on that kid again.
No,
he's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting fact is for the people at home who didn't see this was over a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
This was almost 2 years ago.
It's becoming more chronic of a problem for this kid.
Right.
So.
And it's only worsening.
Yep.
And how old was he? He was 20.
20.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what's really sad is that medically he had been treated and his viral meningitis and everything had been stopped.
Yep.
But the effects of it and the deleterious effects on his body had not changed. They had stopped him from dying at that time, but they hadn't restored him to life.
Yep.
And that's a difference. And I'm not saying that that's fantastic. They were able to stabilize him, get him. I think he got off the airplane from South America and he wasn't even able to make it back to
Utah.
home.
They had to stop in Atlanta and put him in the hospital there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And immediately start care there.
Yeah.
It was that dire of a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And they saved him. That's awesome. That's great.
Yep.
But then how do they restore health after that? And that's really one of the problems with our system is who does the restoration of health? Well, I think that's our job. And I would love to see more people get interested in this and see, because again, from our mentor, we were taught these rules and ways of looking at it and given perspectives that, I went to physical therapy school. They don't teach that.
Yeah.
That's not what the schools are in. And that's really not the school's job. That's the people's job to be interested in it and to push and to come and find this knowledge. It's here. We've got it.
And unfortunately, the medical system.
To you guys, if you're interested in this, come check out Neal's stuff.
Neal.
Yeah,
It's
take
a
classes with
fascinating
Neal.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, with all of us, it's a team. There's a
We
lot
learn
of
from
us
each
in the
other.
community.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully we'll get bigger. But yeah, it was just a fascinating thing to see this, this kid, and he's like, was this as good as they're going to get? You could kind of tell. But the parents they haven't spared any expense to try and they've taken him. He was in South America and he had some care there. He had it, in Atlanta. He had, great hospitals and great doctors looking at it. But unfortunately, the allopathic model, as opposed to the osteopathic model, is not set up to be able to think through these individual layers and then how they come together, which is what we're trying to learn, from you and what you're able to see and reading this research and stuff, how your mind puts it together and applying that model that you've had more experience in than I have. It's something that, as a mom, you want your kids, you want to have that, right? You don't want to sick care. You don't want to lose your kid because somebody didn't understand how to put things together that way.
When I think that's what may be different between our group and there's lots of people who say, I'm a manual therapist. And just because you put your hands on somebody and rub or twist or move or do some stuff, and I'm not saying that there aren't people that have big chunks of what we have, but again, like, as you say, it's the integration of the systems analysis and the integrations of system treatment.
Yeah.
That's what we particularly have that's special,
Yeah.
that I don't think you necessarily get from those other systems. There's also a certain amount of the bullpucky effect of, like, for example, can you do cranial by pulling on the earlobe at 5 grams? You can't move the temporal because the soft tissue of the earlobe is not hard enough to transmit those forces into the temporal.
Right.
So there's some bullpucky out there. There's some, and what happens is people will be scientific right up to the point that they know, and then they want to get somewhere, but they don't understand how to cross the chasm of knowledge between there. And so all of a sudden there's a magic pathway. And that's really where what you see is there, all of a sudden it's a magic pathway. And some people get better and a lot of people don't. And, oh, well, I tried manual therapy, right? I get that all the time. And you're like, no, this is manual therapy.
Yeah.
But it has to be, it has to be high level scientifically oriented, and it has to be logically put in place. It can't just be happenstance. And maybe we'll try this today. I have a feeling, I heard a bird and it said, treat your left ankle. That's great, but that's not scientific. You have to test it, treat it, test it.
And it has to work on more than just one person. Instead of, I had this idea one time and it happened to work on that guy today.
Right.
It's got to be something you can count on and say. And one thing that I'll ever hear you say is, well, it's just that way. Right? Like, you are like, well, the reason we have this is because of this, or or this happens because of this, instead of just, stopping and saying, that's just the way it is. We just don't know, or we don't care to investigate further. And that's where a lot of the shortcomings, I think, come in, is because we don't push further and go, why is that? Right? Why is it that way? Because that's where the key to health is going to be, or at least past that point. Right? So health, not sick care.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. How anything else we need to discuss about this topic?
I think
What do we want people to do about it?
Yeah. So how can
well, I want people to seek it out.
Seek it out. Yep.
Right.
Come,
and I think so.
come find us.
Right. So we have people that take classes from us, and they are at certain levels, and we have them listed on a website to say, this person's a clinician, this person's a master clinician, this person's a neurobiohacker, somebody who really knows how to tweak the system. Right? Autumn. So
Well, I don't know that I'm there yet. We'll see. I'll take my
and we're all
test. We'll see.
trying. Yeah.
Yeah. We're always trying to learn more.
Right.
Always try and be better, refine our skills.
But that's the whole thing is learning how to do this and how to. It's somewhat like you might be able to play a riff on an instrument, but can you play a song?
Yeah.
And then not only can you play a song, can you play your part of the song in with the other people playing the music?
Mm-hmm.
Right. The body's already playing a song. You have to be able to integrate yourself into that music. Figure out where it's just kind of going wrong. Where's your part? Where's your role? How do you help that body? That's how you become a neurobiohacker.
Awesome. All right. So let's maybe just bring it back to for plasma exchange. If people are interested in doing this, who would be a good candidate for something like that?
Well, really, everyone.
And everybody needs to get that junk out.
Yeah. As you get older, more and more, and especially people who've had chemo. Let's say you've had chemo. Let's say you've had viral meningitis, or you've had a disease process that's caused problems. Lyme's disease.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you go through the list of chronic diseases or chronic inflammatory diseases, Crohn's disease, autoimmunity, all these things. You can help because, again, autoimmunity is inappropriate signaling. You're not turning on and off your immune system at the right time. So this is really something that can benefit everyone.
So a theme here that I think I'm hearing is that somebody who's had maybe a severe illness, chronic illness, somebody maybe who's older. What did you say? Sorry.
Lots of children.
Yeah.
For females, especially.
Sure.
Cell lines are in our bodies too.
Yep.
Those are autoimmune things.
Somebody, who has, going back to the analogy, somebody who has a lot of junk in their system, maybe.
Which we all do.
Yeah, we all do. Sure. Yeah.
Because you were especially, unhealthy or whatever. You just get it.
You get exposed to stuff. People that live within a mile of a
That's right. You mentioned that.
Golf course, 85% chance of getting.
So environmental stuff too.
Environmental stuff. Environmental air pollution, indoor air pollution. Number one cause of lung cancer, indoor air pollution.
Fascinating. So how should they go about doing it? Are you aware of any, specific companies that do it or
if you do a search in your local area, there are people that do it. Again, it's a cost factor.
Probably a lot of them.
But I mean, like, but just like maybe donating plasma. Is there? Do you have any?
BioLife Plasma.
Okay.
It's Takeda Pharmaceuticals, or pharmacy, or pharmaceutical. They want to do research on it, so they'll actually pay you for it. Now they want you to come a lot because they want a lot of plasma, and they keep trying to reward you with money. And so some people might have a pejorative view of that, saying, "Oh, that's what junkies do." Well, yeah, for the money, but you can also do it for your own health, and because who's the sucker here? They're paying you for you to get really healthy. I think that's a great deal.
Sure.
Yep.
Anything to be, maybe to be, how do you go into it with your eyes kind of open? Are there any side effects you need to worry about, or any post, treatment, post exchange things you need to consider?
Removing plasma can be a little problematic. They do have to put an anticoagulant in there, and it's just a very simple chemical, but it's nothing bad. I think it's like vinegar or something. Vinegar and, I don't know. It's a real simple thing. The problem is they're removing plasma from your system, and people who have more of a vasovagal response or syncope or whatever you want to call it are going to have a harder time with it. Only because the blood volume decreases and your vagus nerve will go, what the heck is going on?
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be some of that, and they have lots of things like if you go to BioLife Plasma, they all say, hey, make sure you eat lots of protein, make sure you've eaten that morning, drink lots of fluids, drink lots of electrolytes, and then even afterwards, have electrolytes, have proteins. One of the things they don't say is when you're there, just like when you go to the hospital and you've had a surgery and they say, oh, we're going to squeeze your leg so that the blood comes out of there. Pump your ankles while it's going on or after it's going on, making sure you're mixing your blood volume, because they're going to mess up your blood volume, like where it's coming in and out of your arm. You have, a lot of plasma going out and just protein coming in. Your fluid volume is going to drop. So there's some certain things. Yeah, there can be some challenges to it, but the payout on the other end of rejuvenating your brain, rejuvenating your organs, to me outweighs a lot of that stuff. And as we all demand this, there will be more people that are providing it for less money.
For sure. Yeah. And then also, try to find a osteopathically trained manual therapist to integrate that exchange with the other, the things we talked about earlier.
Optimizing
that.
This exchange. Right.
Yeah.
And we have people that we are listing on our website and on Pursuit Physical Therapy, pursuitpt.com, where I have my classes.
PursuitPerformanceTraining.com.
There you go. PursuitPerformanceTraining.com. There we go.
He's in the hot seat, folks.
Yes, there we go.
All right. And then, so do you have any, have you seen any of your clients do this and benefit from it? Do you have any, example,
I've got a great
success stories?
Yeah. So I have a patient, money's not an object. So she took her and her boyfriend, flew to Switzerland, where they have clinics that have been doing this for 30 years. And for $20,000 each, they had 2 days in a row, they did the plasma exchange. Now, she's always doing things to improve her health or this, that, the other. So she's kind of she calls herself a hippie healthy chick. So she's pretty funny. So her plasma came out and it was pretty clear. It was relatively clear, mildly straw colored. Now her boyfriend, who hasn't taken as well of a care of himself, his came out pretty dark. She said, well, if we were drinking beer, I was drinking a very light beer. He was drinking Guinness.
Guinness, yeah.
And so she gave him no end of heck about it. And now it was a costly thing on their part, and there was a spa treatment, the medical spa, blah blah blah, very expensive. They were there for a week. The food was provided. It was like best of this and best of that. Welcome to Switzerland.
Medical follow up, all the things.
Right.
Yeah.
But but his health and her health, immediately you could see an improvement, and that has maintained itself over time.
Can you be a little more specific? Like how did she notice? What differences did she notice?
Well, so she's one of those people who is constantly looking at her numbers, her HRV numbers. She's watching, all these health numbers, and her blood panels improved. Her C-reactive protein, all the way back down to normal. She'd actually had a positive ANA, which can be a test for autoimmunity, and she hasn't had one since. It's been 6 months. She's constantly doing other things, but she still goes and has ozone treatments done and this, that, the other. And she may still have problems here and there, but her overall health and mental well-being, she's sharper than ever. And yeah, so she's just done really well. She's been really happy with the results. She's not keen to go back and repeat it. She says, I think I'm doing pretty well. My numbers are all pretty well. So she's not keen to, but she's pretty like, I don't really want to.
A healthier lifestyle.
She's living a
Do
healthier
that,
lifestyle.
right?
Yeah. So that all helps. But the
Mhm.
boyfriend, she's thinking she might have to send him back, or she's not sure whether she's keeping him yet. So
Trade him in.
right, she might be trading him in on a less Guinness colored
exchange.
model. Right,
That's cool.
on a neutral plasma exchange. This exchange is bad. So yeah, no, she's done really well. He's done really well. He's actually noticed a tremendous improvement because where he was and where he's come to now. Again, he's kind of adopting the lifestyle she's been doing. That helps. Obviously, how you eat has a lot to do with that. You can't just go and eat at McDonald's or ultra processed food, but his health has improved a lot. His markers have all improved. His cholesterol's gone down. His his inflammatory markers have all gone down. So, I myself am just doing the blood donation on a regular basis and then saying, okay, well, you can just do blood donation. It takes a little time to get to the plasma place.
Yeah.
So
You
for
replace
me,
the red blood cells, so you can't do it as often.
Say that again. Sorry.
You have to replace the.
Oh,
red
yeah,
blood cells
yeah,
with
yeah.
Blood donation. So
You
do
can't
it
you
as
can't
often.
donate blood as often as you do
Yeah.
plasma.
you got to take breaks. There are some people that have a problem with making too many red blood cells, particularly men. So they can, but you have to take a break from whole blood donation. So doing it too often is not a good idea either.
So what differences have you noticed in your own personal health
I don't
by
feel
doing
like I
that?
need as much sleep. I mean, obviously, we all need regular rest and sleep, but that fatigue level of being able to, like, when I do sleep, I wake up and I'm refreshed. Like,
Oh, cool.
we all worked yesterday. We did a late podcast. I was up even later than that, screwing around,
Early.
and got up really early. We were back at class.
Tourist.
But I have to say, but yeah, I was walking around downtown, taking my life in my hands. No,
Yeah.
it was fine. But I have to say, when I go to bed and I get that chance to sleep, I sleep deeply. I get dreams. It used to be there for a while. It's like, yeah, I know I'm dreaming, but I just can't remember them. Now it's like, oh yeah, I'm always aware that I was dreaming. I'm like, oh yeah, I had some doozies last night. So I have to just say that the general rest and the general just vitality, I just feel better.
Awesome.
I have
right.
a patient,
Yeah,
been
I want to hear your.
and a little bit different story. We've been providing osteopathic based, model manual therapy for a while, and I mentioned this about the plasma donation. He has a leg that didn't grow at the same rate as the other, and used to have a really huge lift in it. And between the
How big was the lift? Sorry.
3.25 inches.
Okay.
That's huge.
It's pretty big. I have a picture. But anyway, he has been receiving treatment, regularly, but regularly since we've been here. There was a time we weren't here for about 6 months, and so he didn't get any while I was gone. But anyway, he started doing the plasma donation, was able to donate 7 times, and then needed a break. But his leg is growing longer. He no longer has any kind of an insole addition at all.
No lift.
No lift. And he's not exactly perfect, but he feels like having any kind of lift was always, he could never get it off fast enough because it was always inhibiting. And he's actually growing taller overall. So he's at 42, he's growing bigger. The other thing that he's mentioned to me too is that he feels better, and he has lots of stress. He's got a young family, providing for his family and stuff, has a couple different jobs that, blend a lot of his talents and stuff, but he's handling it much better. And you wouldn't think that someone at 42 could, start growing. He's been told his whole life, you are what you are. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think where is his lift at now? Isn't it less than an inch
there's
now?
no lift.
No lift
No
now,
lift whatsoever.
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Super cool. Thanks for that's awesome.
Neurobiohacker.
I just do what I'm taught.
Are we all?
Yeah. But it really does work. And it takes time, right? But he's never had, just how we always treat, right? He's never had a recipe. We do the different tests and say, well, how is he today? Where is he at today? What did he do since we saw him last time? And then we, kind of catch up and say, well, this is where it seems like he's needing work. So that's where we provide treatment and then go from there. And so each treatment is customized at that time for where they're at and also what they can handle.
Yeah, that's something I appreciate about the osteopathic model is that, it's not cookie cutter for sure. You
There's no
have,
protocol.
like you said, you have to test, observe, retest, right?
Test, treat, observe,
yeah.
test. Do it again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now what do you have? Now what do you have? Okay, that's not responding. Where else should I go?
Yep.
What other thing pops up?
Yep. And it's different every time, which is amazing.
It's how we'd all like to be treated for our stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's truly health care because the system is complex. This is the whole thing. You see people on YouTube going, "Oh, if you tap your chest 3 times, you'll make your vagus nerve work." If your vagus nerve were that of a big of a ding dong, you'd be dead long ago. Okay, it's a complex system. There aren't simple little tricks to get stuff to work, or it might work one time, but the next time you do it, your nervous system, it's called neural accommodation, right? Neural accommodation, for example, the clothes on your body, you forget all about them all day long until I say that, and then all of a sudden you remember you have clothes on your body. Like, oh yeah, thank goodness. But that's just it. The nerves got used to you having clothes on your body. So you doing this tap to improve your vagus nerve function works once.
Mm-hmm.
So all these little tricks you keep seeing on social media about, oh, just do this. Oh, do this for vagus nerve. Oh, we'll do. How could that work? That's not going to work. That's not. Oh, but it does this. No, that's not how it works. It's complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the treatments have to be complex because you have to stay one step ahead of the system who's going, we don't trust you. Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I don't know. Is there anything else we need to address in this episode?
That's great. Thanks for having the conversation.
Yeah. So all you listeners and watchers out there, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
PursuitPerformance.com.
Yes.
Performance
check us-
training.
Oh, performance. Pursuit Performance Training?
Yep. PursuitPerformanceTraining.com.
PursuitPerformanceTraining.com.
Yep.
See you next time.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of OsteoSignal with Neal D. O'Neill. For more information, please visit PursuitPT.com or PursuitPerformanceTraining.com. Our music was written and performed by Sky Toes. Copyright 2026 by Neal D. O'Neill.